Who wants to volunteer?
That's a good.
It's a question for Kevin. Kevin, you, just looking at the model of the Dow there, that we had the glass supports, combined question really. Whose decision was it to make it out of glass instead of perspex? And did you think it was a better solution to that problem, that it was better to be made out of glass rather than perspex?
Well, again, we're not involved at the early stages of planning these things, and also a lot of the control over what objects are going to be there and the look of it are somebody else's, either the designer or the sponsor or the owner. Now, in this particular case, they wanted it lifted, they wanted it higher, they didn't want a plinth. They actually wanted to give the impression of the sea. That's why they weren't all the same height. They wanted a flow running through it as well, and they wanted it in green glass because then it had a bit of a green quality to it. Acrylic, they discounted because it does scratch, it does attract dust, and they felt that it would be a maintenance issue there. Now, again, you may be dealing with people where money is no object, and so really it's a matter of, is it possible? Of course it's possible and perhaps cheaper to do in acrylic, and for some people that may be the option, but if somebody is saying, no, I want this made out of glass, just go away and do it, well, then it's for us to sort of try and find that solution and to offer advice to say whether there's a problem that possibly couldn't be overcome, but at the same time still taking into account that these are objects owned by these people. As I say, it was like a government sponsored museum, and so they had the whip hand to say what they wanted.
Hello, it's a question for Kevin and Shelley, really. You touched on 3D printing earlier during your talk, Peter. I just wondered whether you saw a future for that application in mount making generally, and any specific ideas you might have where it could be applied.
Yeah, we see it there. I don't know. I'm still a little bit of a dinosaur. I like using my hands and making the mount there in front of me. Obviously, like I said with the Dow, if I'd just been able to scan the thing and send it off to a program, it would have said, right, if we take slices across here, here are your profiles, it goes straight into a machine and it will either be cut out, or if it was something that didn't need the strength, then it could be 3D printed. I think this is where the issue will come, is what material can be used for the 3D printing. Now, if it's only a plastic, it may not be strong enough, although I do know that you can produce them in plastic and then cast them in metal afterwards. But, things will develop. I don't know quite what the next stage will be, but I'm afraid we'll just have to wait and see on that.
Actually, I can add a little bit to that. This actually was a topic that came up at the forum in Santa Fe. And it was funny because there was a speaker who didn't show up and we needed a speaker. And these folks from the Office of Exhibit Central happened to come with a presentation in their briefcase, like, oh, we have a presentation. And it was on 3D printing and what they've been doing. And it turned out to be a really, thought-provoking and talkative thing because they're really into it. And I can give you their contact information because they've been doing a lot of work with that too. And they're finding out things like you can start to print. There are places where you can print in metals now. The technology is rapidly changing. And I think, and we've been talking with people who have had experience already with, if not making the exact mount for out of the 3D printing, but maybe using the 3D printing to scan an object that's too delicate to handle and use that as a mold somehow. There's ways to use it. I'm not knowledgeable myself on the technology. We do have people here who are, and so it is in its early stages, but it's definitely will have a place, I think, for us as the equipment gets cheaper, as there's more materials more easily available, as we all acquire the skills, needed to do the drawings and read, but maybe the forum here, we can do something on 3D printing and, play around with it then. So.
Just to add a little footnote to that, 3D printing sort of dependent in the mount making world on 3D modeling. So BJ and I have been working on this and really find the possibilities intriguing. One of the things, if you're interested in this, is to get better acquainted with the 3D modeling programs and how you can take scans, dump the files, pardon me, load the files into the 3D modeling programs and start to manipulate things and start to model the mount off of the scan, which was a big part of what the presentation was that Shelley mentioned. And feel free to talk to us at Drinks about that. My question for Kevin, again, is if you wouldn't mind giving us an overview of your staff and how you go about hiring people, what type of training you might provide, how you find mount makers.
Yeah, this is a major issue that you have. We're in the commercial world. We can't just take on staff if we don't think that we've got the work. We do look to the colleges to find students that have run through the courses. But inevitably, working in the commercial field is quite different from working in museums. You know, you can sort of see the difference between some of the presentations earlier on. Roger's one about the hat. I mean, sorry, hat, helmet. So from that point of view, we usually work on a period about 18 months to 2 years after somebody joins us, so that we can change them into the person that works for us. Speed is important, of course. Care is incredibly important too. It's this balance. With the commercial world, we've got to make money, otherwise we don't employ people. And so from that point of view, people who come to us with a breadth of skills, we may not have any ceramics this week. We may have a lot of furniture. We may have a lot of metalwork or something. So a person that has got a skill that can broach different areas is obviously a more attractive person for us. But people come to us with skills, and through the training that we give internally, and we do send people out on courses. We do pay for our staff to go on the accreditation process to gain the professional accreditation. We encourage them to grow. So.
Can you talk a little more about the accreditation?
Well, over here we have the ICON, Institute of Conservation, that have their own accreditation for conservators, and that is really quite a rigorous process, requiring not only paperwork to be fulfilled to show your skills, but also a verbal meetings and discussions about your work, and it takes into account your workshop and your working environments too. And so if you gain that standard, and there aren't a vast number of accredited conservators, around 250, I'm not sure, I may be going out on a limb there. But once you get that, then you go on to what is classed as the conservation register, where people can search through and find conservators for different particular materials. And it's a way of showing the appropriate level of skills. Yeah, but that's in the conservation area, but there are equivalent certifications in furniture conservation, which aren't the same as that, but are seen as the same level. And also painting conservation have their own accreditation system. But there's, I think joining Europe meant that, certainly in France, I think that government contracts couldn't go out to anybody who wasn't accredited. And so Britain had to bring in an accreditation system to allow free flow of work and all those sorts of things. And so there are different ones that are all of the equivalent standard in the sort of different disciplines. I think horology as well has got their own accreditation in book conservation too, perhaps. By all means, if there's anyone with more knowledge, please say.
But no accreditation for Mountmakers yet.
Fortunately not, no.
Yeah, I'm sorry, just to introduce myself. My name is Paul. I'm a colleague of Helen's here at the Natural History Museum. I've also had a few years at the V&A and also a few months at Plowden and Smiths, although Kevin doesn't remember me. And it was something to do with the comment that Sue Ridley made from the V&A early in the afternoon. Is Sue still here? Are you still with us? Yeah. It was just about the way that people are organising their tasks and maybe the term Mountmakers and things like that and what the kind of work that they do. At the V&A generally, it seems still that there's a much more general, broad base of skills and lots of people are doing lots of different jobs, certainly on the technician side of things. So one technician might be able to weld, they've got access to welding equipment, metal work on the lathe, woods and plastics, things like that, as well as Sue mentioned, installation things as well. A lot of us will be familiar with a similar setup. Here at the Natural History Museum, we have a dedicated engineering workshop. We have fully certified, qualified engineers there doing a lot of the heavy-duty metal work, sculpture work, things like that. Of course, we have a big conservation department. We have separate carpenters. And so our mount making department is quite small. And we're doing things which obviously the engineers are only allowed to touch and we aren't. And I think one of the reasons that we have this forum taking place and building is that conservators have accreditation. You know, they've got particular qualifications and recognised qualifications. Same for engineers and others, yet mount makers don't. And yet really, I think there's, as we've seen over current years, there's a much higher skill level involved now in mount making. Your knowledge has to increase, certainly of conservation work. Your techniques are increasing. And so your skill level is going up, and I think it's just trying to get some recognition that this actually is quite a skilled job. And it possibly isn't being remunerated or recognised in terms of status in the way that it needs to be. I don't know if other people would agree with this. So that's why I think it's important to recognise. I mean, the word doesn't even exist in the dictionary, does it? Mount making, looked it up, wasn't there. And yet there's a Mount Makers Forum, and we're trying to, this is often how we describe ourselves. So maybe I just want to thank everybody for really coming here, getting involved, and maybe just keeping the ball rolling with Mount Makers Forums, because I think it's important in just raising the profile, the recognition of the skills and knowledge that people have, and maybe one day there might be some accreditation, so a body might recognise it, and maybe one day we might even be in the dictionary as well. So thanks very much, Helen.
May I just follow up on that? In terms of accreditation, I can't comment, but at the moment the V&A is working with ICON to create a diploma for museum technicians, which will cover mount making plus other skills, for example, packing for transport across the world and so forth. So although we can't necessarily say we are delivering an accreditation system, I think the first thing you need is some kind of qualification system to demonstrate the skills for accreditation.
Yes, I wanted to follow you up as well, because I'm a textile conservator, accredited, and an assessor for accreditation. And actually coming here today, I'm astonished you guys aren't already doing it. So I think it is, you know, I'm astonished that you aren't part of ICON, that you aren't, it has to happen, because you're handling all the objects that, you know, we try and liaise with you. If you're not on the lists, we don't, half time, because I run my own private studio, can't always find someone, wouldn't know where you are. So I'm actually so astonished being here. It's a great event. It's fantastic to hear all this enthusiasm. But to me, it's like, well, it's obviously waiting to happen, because I'm amazed it hasn't already happened. So you guys all getting together, by all means, become members of ICON. We need more members in ICON. Some of you will already be, because by other means you have reached it. But as soon as you are part of ICON, you can help guide ICON. You can become your own group within ICON. You will then eventually find your ways. Yes, it's true, of course, that might have to be training. I don't know anything about that, but you will have your own backgrounds. The accreditation system does not necessarily require a certain type of training. It requires proving that you have the knowledge, which is quite a different way of going about things. So once you are forming your groups, getting your networks together, and you're part of ICON, I'm sure ICON will be delighted to welcome you in and become part of the whole accreditation system.
Thanks very much for those comments. I think, yeah, something I was
and I'm sure there'll be a space for you there, and it would be, you know, a fantastic way forward.
Yeah, well, I
For
mean,
all of us,
I
for the
think-
exchange as well.
Yeah, I think as I said as well, that this link has come up a lot. You know, it's more than a link really with conservation relationship, and it's going on everywhere. And even though each institution is structured differently, where we're all dealing with the same issues, we're all coming up with, you know, solving the same problems.
It'd be better for everybody, better for us to be able to find you through those routes. You know, I know you're in the museum, so you don't know. Oh yeah, but you're in the museum and I'm in the freelance world, and those crossovers are always necessary, and they're much easier when there are some formal links there.
Yeah. Well, that's, you know, definitely something that we're hoping to work on. You know, so I think Sam at the end is going to
I'm
push
sure
on
it'll
that.
take off immediately because you've all got the enthusiasm, and it's so obvious there's a big gap in the whole market there.
Yeah, but I think it's a long process. We're all talking about recognition of a profession, which doesn't exist, even the name in the dictionary. We've been through, I'm a conservator also, and I was the president of ECHO for a long time. And I think having the definition of a profession means that we need to write standards. We probably need to have training, school, and yeah, so it's probably...
You're not starting from scratch because conservation has done all that already.
Yeah, but it's different. Mount making, it's different than conservation.
Textiles are different from paper, but it still works.
Yeah, but it's not. I mean, there's not the same issue here in conservation and mount making. So
Our experience with PACR has shown us that that there are so many transferable skills that work so incredibly well. I think it might be surprising for you how well it fits.
I'm doing both. So I know what you're talking about.
Great. Any more questions before we?
You guys are relieved.